Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, firefighters brace for another round of dangerous weather. And San Diego's colleges release new data about sexual assaults on campus. Some schools saw an increase.
And make room for about 1 million more people in San Diego County over the next 3 decades. I'm Peggy Pico with an in-depth look at how to manage housing density, affordability, and community character. Plus, what do computers, golf clubs, and beer have in common? Well, they're all made right here in San Diego. Why manufacturing is a major part of our local economy and what it takes to earn a good living making things.
Also tonight, we'll start a special series on San Diego families doing their best to leave no carbon footprint. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Get ready for some extra hot weather. A heat advisory goes into effect tomorrow for much of San Diego County. Fire officials are warning of an elevated fire risk from now through Sunday night. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy says we're all being urged to be extra cautious.
Firefighters are bracing for potential wildfires in San Diego County through the weekend as triple-digit heat, single-digit humidity, and mild Santa Ana winds roll into the region. CAL FIRE has increased air and ground resources, including 1 additional air tanker from Northern California, for a total of 3. There are also 10 water-dropping helicopters and a full staff of fire crews on standby. CAL FIRE Captain Kendall Borteaser says air resources ran out during the May wildfires. He says this time they're better prepared to attack fires quickly, whether at the coast or the mountains.
For so many years, it seemed we focused on the fires occurring in the backcountry in the rural areas that we saw in May, that's not the case. And we've really come to understand that wildfires in San Diego County can occur anywhere in the county. The beach, the coast, residential neighborhoods, rural areas.
Borteaser says 95% of wildfires are human-caused and many are accidental. He says people need to be extra cautious with barbecues and other outdoor activities.
Be cautious when off-roading, be extra careful outdoors, make sure and mow before the winds, don't mow during windy times.
Fire officials have warned for months that San Diego faces serious fire danger this year as gripping drought conditions that started more than 1,000 days ago have parched canyons and hillsides to a crisp. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
County Health Agency is trying to calm worries about Ebola coming to San Diego. It put out a statement today saying the local risk is minimal. They're also working with healthcare providers to be on the lookout. There's 1 confirmed case of Ebola in Texas, and people who came in contact with the man are under quarantine. PBS NewsHour will have more on this developing story coming up at 7. A new report says arguments and domestic violence were the top 2 motives for murder in the county last year. San Diego Association of Governments released the data today. Arguments accounted for 43% of homicides last year, while domestic violence accounted for 1 in 5 murders. Both those numbers were an increase over the previous year. Of course, we've got a link to the full report at kpbs.org. San Diego colleges and universities have released new information about the number of sexual assaults on their campuses. Schools getting federal funding have to report crime statistics every year. Joining us to talk about this is KPBS reporter Angela Carone. So these numbers cover the 2013 calendar year, Angela. What do they tell us?
Well, the biggest change showed up in the number of reports on UC San Diego's campus. They've seen a steady increase since 2011, when they had 6 reported sexual assaults. Last year in 2013, they received 20 reports. And the University of San Diego also saw a rise from 1 report in 2012 to 5 reported last year.
Now, did any of the schools see a decrease in sexual assaults?
Yeah, San Diego State, saw a drop in reports by more than half, from 21 to 8. Now, SDSU has been in the news on this issue as they were the subject of a state audit that looked at how the school handles sexual assaults. Another school worth noting would be Cal State San Marcos. They reported 0 sexual assaults for 3 years in a row. But just before school started this year, the school announced it was investigating multiple sexual assaults related to one off-campus fraternity. So those numbers would show up in next year's crime report.
Now, Angela, are these numbers surprising? Should we be concerned?
Well, experts will tell you it's really hard to pinpoint why these numbers fluctuate. What we can say with certainty is that sexual assaults on college campuses are really underreported. A lot of survivors don't tell anyone, much less police. So the numbers are not a true indicator of what's happening on campus, and that's why many experts in the field have long recommended anonymous surveys to get a more accurate read on campus rape.
KPBS reporter Angela Carone. Tomorrow is National Manufacturing Day. Peggy Pico is looking into the industry's impact on San Diego's economy and what's being done to meet the demand for skilled workers.
3,000 San Diego-based companies are manufacturers. They employ more than 94,000 workers, and that's just a few of the details from a new report by National University System Institute for Policy Research. My guest, Kelly Cunningham, led the study. Also with us, Mary Walshak, Dean of UC San Diego Extension. Welcome to Evening Edition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Kelly, what kinds of companies make up San Diego's manufacturing sector?
We have a huge variety of and diversity of companies. It's everything from the drones, the UAV manufacturing, which are Northrop Grumman and General Atomics Aeronautical, NASCO shipbuilding, but everything to craft breweries, golf club equipment, also electronics and computers. Sony is a big company here too, and so it's a huge variety, a diversity of companies.
And I understand electronics and computers is a major portion of the manufacturing that goes on here, or parts for computers. How much does this manufacturing sector actually contribute to the local economy?
It's about 9% of our GDP, which that's about $17 billion. And then if you add in some other factors, the multiplier effects and the processes that go into the products, or things that go into it, it can be almost double that. So almost 18-20% of our economy.
Well, I understand that your report also found that about 94,000 workers are employed in what would be considered a manufacturing business, right, and they earn between $75,000 and $105,000 a year on average. What type of training or education is required for these types of manufacturing jobs?
Well, it really depends on the sector. Some are very high skilled. The engineering, computer degrees are required for those, but some are the other what we traditionally would think of as manufacturing, kind of a hands-on, being able to physically manufacture or produce or make things. So it depends on the sector.
And let me ask Mary about that, because these jobs do not sound like the typical blue-collared jobs that you might be thinking of when you think of manufacturing. You've done a lot of research on this as well. How is San Diego's manufacturing sector unique?
Well, I think it contrasts a great deal. Kelly and I were talking about this with the Midwest and the East Coast, where you still have a lot of large assembly line companies.
In the Midwest.
In the Midwest and on the East Coast. But here you have a network. Basically, we're moving from an assembly line model to a networked model of suppliers and producers and small companies. I think close to 80% of these manufacturing workers work in companies that employ 20 people or less. And so it's a very, very different organization, and it tends to be clean work. It's white-collar work. It may not necessarily be a college grad, because there are a lot of entry-level and technical jobs, but it's not the old dirty work we associate with manufacturing.
Well, this brings me to my next question for you. Are local schools and colleges prepared to train or educate workers needed for these types of manufacturing jobs?
Well, the research that we've done complements Kelly's. We talked with a lot of employers, and we looked at facilities and equipment and teaching programs. And there's a big gap, because we don't have the kinds of equipment, instructors, and curriculum that many of these firms need, even for college graduates. What we're hearing is that an engineer who has not had project-based learning in his or her undergraduate career is not work ready. And so there's a lot of additional training at the work site or for the work site. And programs like University Extension offer all sorts of certificate programs to help college grads or community college grads bridge to the workplace.
To get on that. Now, Kelly, your study also showed that even though we're talking about a whole lot of workers here and the impact on the economy, that actually the number of manufacturing jobs here in our region has not recovered from the recession. What do you think it would take to get that recovery back up to the same numbers?
Well, what the data shows us is that production value, what we're producing is actually the value of that is up. It's increased. It increased over the past decade and even during the recession. But employment declined somewhat. It started to come up a little bit, but it's still lower than it was. What that means is we're producing more goods with fewer people, and we're producing more high value added goods. So if we're going to increase those types of jobs, we need more technical skills, engineers particularly, that there seems to be a shortage of that, and computer skills. And those are jobs that are higher paying too, and it's a matter of increasing those types of opportunities in San Diego, and our market is the rest of the world, essentially.
But there also are good jobs that don't officially qualify as manufacturing jobs that fall in the production. So installation, maintenance, and repair jobs. You know, as we get more environmentally conscious, we're going to retrofit a lot of buildings. You know, those are production jobs, those are maintenance, those are repair jobs that are good jobs, not exactly manufacturing, but they're opportunities for high school grads and community college grads.
Absolutely. Well, I need to stop it here because we have so much more on our website. We could talk about this for days. So Kelly Cunningham and Mary Walshnick, thank you very much. And I want to let folks know that they can also, on Friday, tomorrow, October 3rd, a group of about 20 local manufacturing companies are holding open houses for public tours. For more information and to learn how you can sign up for one of those tours, go to our website, kppbs.org.
Wow, here's a look at the ocean floor like you've never seen it before. 80% of the world's seafloor is unmapped, including parts of the Indian Ocean, where a Malaysian Airlines jet was lost earlier this year. San Diego scientists used satellite radar to trace the ocean's depths and find underwater features no one had ever seen before.
And you think the ocean surface is pretty flat or spherical, but it has these bumps and dips that reflect variations in the pull of gravity, very small variations in the pull of gravity. And so with a very precise radar, we can map out these bumps and dips, and then we use that to infer what's going on deep in the ocean.
The findings have been published in the journal Nature. Researchers discovered thousands of previously unknown underwater mountains. They'll soon show up in a higher resolution version of Google Earth. The Chargers went pink today for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. They put up a big pink house at Qualcomm Stadium to give free mammograms to women who don't have health insurance. They teamed up with Komen San Diego. The group's director says every day 6 San Diego women are diagnosed with breast cancer and 1 dies.
If it's found in its earliest stages, breast cancer has a 98% survival rate. The catching it. So you have to catch it with a mammogram, and if you don't get a mammogram and you wait till you feel something, it's often too late.
About 80 women got mammograms today at Qualcomm. It would have been more, but the day's warm temperatures overheated 2 of the machines. Women who couldn't get their free screenings will be able to make an appointment for another day. As government leaders debate new laws to combat climate change, it can be easy to feel little responsibility for your own carbon footprint, but not everyone sees it that way. KPBS reporter Claire Trageser tells us about 2 families who are using as little energy as possible in their homes. In this first segment, she profiles an Encinitas man on a mission to conserve.
It's been hot in San Diego, record temperature hot. Our utility grid is taxed and water is in short supply. Scientists predict all of this will continue thanks to climate change. Many people are doing what they can to reduce their impact on the environment, but some take it much farther than others.
Welcome to our green home. I want to show you around and show you what we've done.
In the past 10 years, Encinitas resident Dadla Panazil has transformed his home into a green building wonderland.
My motivation is primarily to stop climate change. I'm very concerned.
But Panazil doesn't let this concern weigh him down. He calls himself an Energizer bunny, and he seems to move even faster as he excitedly shows us around.
It's a very cool thing. We have gray water from this shower. So when I put this button, and now the water in the shower is going to the backyard. And it takes the water from the shower, which comes out of the wall here. Here's the gray water.
He saves all his shower water and uses it on his garden. A solar-powered pump warms the tap water that would normally go down the drain.
This may look hokey, but this is just how it is.
And don't get him started on his insulation. I'll let him explain.
So I got this house right here, and since I can't do this to my house, I will do this to this house, and I will insulate it just like that, okay? Which is just what we have here, but it's not that good because this is not enough. Why is this not enough? If you ever went skiing and you wore this skiing, you would probably be cold because the air blows right through the insulation. So you need one more thing. What is that? You need an air barrier, which is a windbreaker. This doesn't let air through. So together, these two things make a really good layer of insulation.
Panazil's windows and walls are also specially designed.
What you may think is paint is not paint. This is called American clay. It's a earth clay. It adds thermal mass to the building. So thermal mass is like when you're in a cave, you know, and it's really cold. It's because all the stone absorbs the heat, and even though it could be 90 degrees outside in a cave, it's really cold. It's kind of like that.
Panazil and his wife remodeled their home before he knew about green building, so there are other changes he wishes he'd made. But in some ways, he got lucky.
You may think, oh, these guys were so smart to build on the north side of the property so we have south-facing windows. Well, I didn't know any of this when I did the remodel. I was totally ignorant of green building.
The house is surrounded by trees and plants grow above the windows, bringing a lot of shade.
We put this overhang lower, and then we grew this wonderful vine over it, which has these really pretty white flowers that I don't know the name of, but they smell really good.
In one place, Panazil added a metallic sheet called aluminate to help keep out more sun. The house is also approved as a wildlife habitat.
There are 2 apricots behind me and a peach.
His garden is filled with trees bearing apples, lemons, apricots, and macadamia nuts, and he gets his own honey from his beehive. Panazil works as a green building consultant.
If it weren't for climate change, I probably would be, you know, building guitars or something.
He charges between $15,000 to $30,000 to upgrade a building's insulation. It's worth it, he says, not just because of the utility bills.
If we can reduce our building emissions, we can take away all that heat-trapping gas going into the atmosphere, which is going to slow climate change. If we insulated every building in this country, we would probably stop climate change.
Panazil seems like a relentlessly optimistic cheerleader for combating climate change, but he's also realistic.
I wake up every morning thinking we're screwed, but then I'm not really happy with myself. I'm not ready to give up, and I don't think anybody would be happy taking the easy road and just say, oh, the hell with it, we've messed it up. I'm here to ask for help because I can't do this by myself. I'm getting old.
Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
And our video journalist Katie Shulov helped produce that story. Tomorrow we'll visit a family living completely off the power grid. Now, by 2050, it's predicted there will be about 4.5 million people living in San Diego County. So how are our communities preparing for the growth? Peggy Pico finds out what's being done to address housing and infrastructure challenges.
What does smart growth look like in San Diego? More homes, taller buildings, and increased transit while maintaining property values and protecting the character of a neighborhood can be tricky. Here to talk about the challenges are my guest, Eric Bruvold with National University Institute for Policy Research and Dave Gadsky with the nonprofit group Community Housing Works. And welcome to Evening Edition.
Good to be here.
Now, Eric, terms like smart growth, density, these can be kind of trigger terms for certain communities. We all remember back in May in Claremont, sort of this outspoken rising of the community members when they were talking about adding taller buildings and things for a trolley stop. So how do you manage community growth, get people on board while still addressing community concerns?
You know, I think you need to do two things. You need to first acknowledge that the region is going to grow and that there's no way for us to pull up the drawbridge. But then secondly is to provide assurances to the community that you'll be good stewards and think about how through design and elements of architecture you can build projects that enhance a community rather than detract from it.
And Dave, our region is expected to grow by at least 1 million people in the next 3 decades. What should city leaders be doing or county leaders be doing to address housing density and affordable housing now?
Well, we need to recognize that the next 30 years can't look like the last 30 years. You know, I'm a San Diego native, and the whole time I was growing up, there was this thing called the future urbanizing area. Well, that area is now Carmel Valley, Forest Ranch, and other neighborhoods like that. And we don't have well identified where the next wave of growth is going to come from. And so we need to create community plans that responsibly reuse and infill our existing neighborhoods and corridors, particularly around transit stops and other infrastructure that will help make the mobility, people get to their jobs, that much easier.
Do you think that home ownership will be as important in the future to, let's say, the millennials as compared to previous generations?
It's interesting. The Pew Research Center did a study and found that 45% of people think that owning a home is important to be considered middle class. That compares to 70% in 1991. So attitudes are certainly changing, and part of that's changing because of new attitudes from the millennials. Another fascinating story is the millennials would much rather give up their car than give up their computer or smartphone.
All right, so Eric, how does this shift, either giving up the car or not necessarily owning a home, how does that affect trying to grow and develop future neighborhoods?
Well, I mean, I think the really good news is that one of the things that we sort of are at a stopping or a nexus point is that we grew a number of suburbs right after the Second World War. There are opportunities really throughout those communities to think about smart ways to address the housing demands and preferences of this new generation and the generation even that comes after them in terms of what they want from housing. So to think about how we take old retail centers and redo them, how we take commercial corridors like El Cajon Boulevard or Moreno Boulevard and retrofit them in a way that, again, enhances a community.
What kind of infrastructure do you think will be needed to support 1 million more people, or 4 million, let's say, total here in San Diego area?
Well, the region's making billion-dollar investments, actually $1.7 billion to build a trolley from Old Town up to the University City area. It's going to spend several $1 billion building managed lanes on its freeways so that we can have both carpools and rapid buses go up and down those. There's long-term plans to extend the trolley out to East Lake and to communities in the eastern part of Chula Vista. So we're going to be building the infrastructure. The question is, are we going to leverage that infrastructure, or are we going to export our housing out to southern Riverside County and have tens, if not hundreds of thousands people stuck on I-15 for 8 hours a day?
And commuting, but let's talk about affordable housing, Dave. So let's say we have this infrastructure and we do this retrofitting. How do you also add in affordable housing? Because without that, you don't have people to live here that can afford to live here.
Part of it is providing a diversity of housing types.
So the different types of diversity as far as like mixed-use housing, is that what you're thinking about?
Exactly. Smaller housing, things that are naturally affordable, things that recognize the demographics are different, that we have a lot more aging people in our society and they may need smaller residences, young people who are waiting longer to get married. And right now we've got plans that are largely based in single-family housing, and providing more multifamily housing opportunities is important.
Okay.
So I mean, Peggy, if we take 10 acres of land and we tell a developer that they can build 20 units on it, the developer is going to look and simply say, well, what's the best return I can get for those 20 units? And they tend to be bigger, more amenities, higher luxury items. If we started to base our plans more around square footage or number of bedrooms, or really sort of an idea to try and incent people to sort of get the kinds of communities and the types of homes that we were building a while ago in this community, we could have more affordable options for people.
All right, well, good discussion that can be continued on our website, kpbs.org. Eric Bruvald and David Gadsky, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Hari Srinivasan. On the next News Hour, Kevin Spacey talks House of Cards and fostering young people in the arts. That's Thursday on the PBS News Hour.
More gold shovels and red ribbons today in City Heights, breaking ground on a new skate park, one of 5 new parks being built in the area. City Heights has been about 100 acres short of the recommended park space for a neighborhood of its size. A big driver, though, of the new parks is a group of teenagers who led a campaign for safe places to skateboard and play.
They didn't let up, and I'm so glad they didn't, because they inspired from the beginning these young people who are saying this is the kind of community we want to have.
I think it shows that we have a voice, that anything that we could accomplish anything we want in our community as long as we put the effort to it.
The Central Avenue Mini Park will bring a skate plaza and play areas to a small parcel of land along Interstate 15, just a few blocks south of University Avenue. It's scheduled to open in November next year. Earlier, we told you about the heat advisory starting tomorrow. Of course, it's been warm today. It will be even warmer right through Sunday. There's also a beach hazards warning for the coast, with high surf expected and strong riptides. Coastal temperatures in the upper 80s to low 90s. As for the inland valleys, toasty, upper 90s right through Sunday, mid-80s in the mountain areas. Desert temperatures will be around 100 degrees over the next few days. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.